Joe Satriani, welcome to Life in Six Strings. You've been very busy during the last few years, beavering away on a new record, which is out on April the 8th. It's really exciting. It's your first on Ear Music, and it's called The Elephants of Mars. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So I would love to know, like, obviously the thing that you do is you make instrumental guitar records. How do you challenge yourself when you're making a record each time, and in particular on this one?
I think the challenge is always to really tell the truth about how you feel on any given subject, whether you're writing a super sad song or a silly song or a song that's about science fiction or just about a physical feeling. Just be as truthful as possible and get as much of that humanity into every single note that you play. And that is the biggest challenge, because as you know, from being a student of guitar, just like me, you can learn things, scales, exercises, chords, patterns, copy somebody's style of playing. All those things are actually pretty easy. Human beings are good at that. The hardest thing is to come up with an original way of speaking to somebody through your instrument, through notes and rhythm, and making them feel a certain way, lifting them up, helping them commiserate or celebrate. So that for every album for me, that's the ultimate challenge. And sometimes the situation might change. Like you have a new band, you're in a new city, a new studio, different producer, you've got some new guitars maybe. In this particular case, being at home, recording myself, there was nothing to distract me from myself. And so I really did have to work 100% all the time, every time I played.
Really? And I guess that's hard though as well, because you're on your own and you've kind of got no one to say, no, that's not working. You just like lose yourself for hours on end, or did you spend longer on this record than you would normally?
Well, we did because we could. I'd have to say that every record that I've ever worked on, like the old saying, art is never finished, it's abandoned. And every album is basically abandoned at some point. You really do want to try to play that one verse again or that solo. You really do want to rearrange it or remix it. But you can't. And you run out of money, you run out of time. Everyone gets in their cars and they drive away, This was a real plus for us this time because there was no schedule. There was no date on the calendar where I had to hand it over. No one was staring at the clock on their phone or their watch or the clock on the wall, thinking I've got to do this in the next 2.5 hours and then move on to the next song.
Yeah.
So there wasn't any budget that was tied to actual minutes and seconds like usual, every other album I've ever done. I think it was easier to self-discipline myself and to relax because there was nobody in the room to make fun of me. Because, when you're in the studio with a bunch of guys, somebody makes a mistake, they don't let anybody forget it. So it's all in good fun. But at the same time, you tend to not go right to the edge of the cliff with your playing. You always take a few steps back because you don't want to throw anybody off. So everybody's playing kind of on their good behavior. They want to do a good job for the client. You want to, as I said before, you want to get the song finished because in 2 or 3 hours, you've got to do the next song. You have to stay on schedule.
Yeah.
All that we could forget about. And everybody was told by me, hey, you can take 3 weeks to do this one part. If that's how long it takes for you to figure out exactly what you want as your contribution to this song and this album. This really helped all of us record ourselves in a way that we had never been afforded before, because we were under time constraints or stuff was written out on a chart or something like that. I think that really helped the album become really more expressive song to song. And it needed that because it's a very eclectic album.
Yeah.
And it's a long album. So it needed to be able to sort of breathe and relax, you know.
No, there's nothing wrong with it being a long album. That's all good. And I read that you said that you really, like, you had some crazy ideas on this record. Can you elaborate on that?
Well, you know, first of all, when you call an album The Elephants of Mars, that sort of sets the tone for crazy.
That's what you do, though, isn't it? That's what you do. You come up with these really kind of crazy titles, which is fantastic. But yeah, I guess it started with the title, did it?
Yeah, I had this song. It had a crazy sound in it, and it reminded me of some otherworldly kind of elephant because it kind of snorted and it sounded huge. So I started to think, you know, how can I develop this sound into a story so it motivates me to tell the rest of the song, you know, to fill in the gap. And I thought, okay, it's the future. Earth scientists, they terraform the planet Mars. They don't realize it at the time, but they create this race of sentient, gigantic elephants that have telepathic powers, and they can play music with their gigantic, you know, noses, and they start to communicate to the colonists that have been working on Mars for decades, and they come together with the leader who plays electric guitar, of course, and they decide that they are going to wrestle control of this newly beautiful terraformed planet from Earth's evil corporations who are just sort of using the planet to mine raw materials. And so I thought, well, this is great. It's an epic tale of good and evil. You got rock guitar, you got sentient, gigantic elephants. They play music, and they're on a revolution for a good cause. So, you know, then I knew, well, okay, I can play some really crazy guitar, plug in some funny pedal, and use some weird scale. And when I told everybody else the story, then they thought, well, this is my license to go crazy too. So Eric winds up writing that really weird part in the middle. And, you know, Kenny and Brian come in with their parts, and then Ray comes in finally with the sort of Deep Purple organ part. I mean, it was great. And it took months, actually, of everybody reflecting on it. And so this is where the backstory really helps create the music.
My God, that's brilliant. I love it. See, that's the result of too many lockdowns, too much time to sit and think all these crazy ideas up, which is great for creativity, I guess.
Yes.
And of course, you've got 35-year anniversary of Surfing with the Alien. Any nods to that at all in this record? I mean, I guess the alien theme, the kind of the space theme.
I guess so. I mean, you know, the story behind that album getting that title is tied to the UK, and I'll tell you that I'll try to do it really quickly. Before the album, this is in, you know, back in the old school days when you'd make an album, you send out cassettes months before the record was released. And I did an interview before the record was even pressed with my very first interview with a journalist from the UK. And the gentleman was very complimentary about everything, except at the very end of the interview where he said, it's too bad about the title of the album, which was The Lords of Karma. And he said, how come guitar players get all spiritual and mystical? You know, I'd never understand it. But then he said, but great album. Thank you very much. Goodbye. And so I thought, well, that's really strange. It's like, what if people dismiss the album because of the title without ever giving it a chance? So I called the record company and I said, is there time to change the title of the album? And they said, yes. That we're not manufacturing until next week. What do you want to do? So I looked at the titles and I said, Surfing with the Alien, that's got a sense of humor. They'll know I'm not taking myself too seriously. So it just so happened that the guy I was talking to, his name was Jim Kozlowski. He was about 6'4". He had long platinum blonde hair, and his nickname used to be the Silver Surfer. He says to me, why don't we put the Silver Surfer on the cover? And I said to him, "What's the Silver Surfer?" So this is where you have to understand that I never read comic books when I was a kid because my parents forbid it. And but he was a fan of the Silver Surfer. He lived down the block from Marvel Comics in Manhattan. So he went down there and he asked them if we could license the artwork for the cover. And they said yes, because they were in desperate economic situations and the character of the Silver Surfer was kind of dead in the water. So anyway, a few months later, there we are. The album comes out and the Silver Surfer is on the cover. The album's called Surfing with the Alien. And so, and now this week, we're actually starting an Atmos remix of the album. So I'm very excited about the whole anniversary.
Oh, that's brilliant. Are you going to be doing anything else for it?
I think what we're trying to do right now is get this new album out and secure all the dates for the tours that are finally starting to, the tickets are going to be on sale for the U.S. tour first, and then we'll be coming your way in 2023. So that's what we're focused on.
Oh, I can't wait. Can you remember who the journalist was? The British journalist?
No.
Who did he work for? Can you remember?
That's so long ago. No. And I was so traumatized because, first of all, it was my first one. And you have to remember, I was not a solo artist at the time. I was just a guitar player who played in bands. So I didn't even think there was going to be a solo career, which is why I thought I was so upset when he had such a negative reaction to the title. So I guess I have to thank him, whoever he is.
Oh God, I wish I knew. That would be great. It's probably someone that I've met, someone that I've worked with. So I guess I have to ask you, what made you pick up the guitar?
Well, there were a couple of factors. I'm youngest of 5 kids. My parents were into music. They were jazz age kids, and there was so much music in my house growing up, old rock and roll, jazz, classical, funk, Motown, British Invasion, blues, you name it. One of my sisters was a folk guitar player as well, but I started on drums at age 9, and I studied for 3 years until I gave it up. And then when Jimi Hendrix died, that day I decided to become a guitarist. So that's how that whole thing got started. So so I started playing in 1970.
Why Hendrix? As in why when he died? Were you a massive fan of him before that?
I was, yeah. I was introduced to his music through my older sisters. And the very first time I heard a Hendrix song on the radio, it was like it changed my DNA. To me, I was a different person. I was just a little kid, but it was like when the first time I heard the Stones or the Beatles, it just changed me somehow. And I set me on a path. So I just felt devastated. Maybe it was the way that I learned that he had passed away. I was ready for a change. I was literally wearing American football gear on my way out to the field for after school practice. And a teammate just happened to mention it to me that he heard that Hendrix had died. And so I just turned around, went in the gym, took off my gear, told the coach I was quitting. I went home and told my family, I'm going to be a guitarist.
What did they say?
There was a lot of arguing. That's a typical Italian-American family in New York having a good argument over dinner.
Love it. I guess, was it a case of, Hendrix has gone, the world needs another great guitarist. That's it.
I wasn't being that presumptuous. I was just thinking he's going to be missing from my life. And so what am I going to do to fill that void? And so I had a more spiritual, I was just a little kid, not a lot of hormones, not a lot of brain cells when you're 14. So I was going on faith, and it was hard. Guitar playing's always been hard for me. So it was tough going, but I stuck with it because I had this spiritual connection that I felt that there was a really good reason to continue besides, becoming a rock star or rich and famous, that kind of thing. That never entered my mind. I was purely focused on the music.
But that interests me that obviously because of my journey and stuff that you say that you found it always found it hard. What did you start with?
I think, like any other beginner, I struggled with getting my fingers to obey my mental commands. Isn't that what it is? I know
all about that.
Yeah, but that's what it is, right? You go, you learn it. You know, your teacher shows you a C chord, and then your teacher says, go to an F, and you know, for some reason it takes forever. And it hurts, and not all the strings ring out, and you can't figure out, like, why won't my fingers do what I ask them to do? and so I had to figure out, well, how am I going to do this? Since I'd been a drummer, I understood you practice. You learn lots of different things, like you learn a language, you learn vocabulary, and you have faith that at some point you're going to use this word. But even though right now you don't want to use it, but you learn it anyway, and you learn the meaning, you learn how to spell it. So music is very much like that. And when I was learning drums, I learned all the rudiments, not knowing why. It didn't sound like, you know, Ringo or Charlie Watts at the time, but I thought, I bet they studied this too. Yeah. So I'll do it, you know. And then when I got to guitar, I'd already been there as a young musician practicing. So I kind of knew what I had to do. I had to do it every day for at least an hour. I had to just simply play everything that I had learned today, and then maybe add one component. And so that's what I did, just one foot in front of the next, you know.
And every day you did it. Well, that's impressive that you kept it up. But and so how did you learn in that way? Like, were you learning through songs, or like listening to records? Or were you, because I guess you had it like YouTube, like we do now. So you would have had a book or something, I guess.
That would have been great if there was YouTube, because you could see somebody doing it. That's so important. No, but what I did have was the funniest thing. I had a tape recorder instead of an amplifier. Now, the reason why this is important is, first of all, the family had decided, since I had abandoned the drums and they had suffered for 3 years of listening to me practice, that they were not going to get me an amplifier. And so I'd have to figure out something else out. And my father had given me a woolen sack tape recorder, which looked like a small tank, you know, but it played 1/4-inch tape. In order to get my guitar sound to come out, I realized that I had to put tape on and push record. And so my very first practice sessions were all recorded for a good 6 months. And so I would, you know, push record, I'd practice. And then when my fingers really hurt, I'd stop, and I thought, well, I might as well listen back. And I'd listen to it. Of course, I was horrified, you know, but immediately I understood, oh, there's a connection between what I'm playing and what it sounds like when you hear it back. And the worst part of a beginner is that they keep stopping. So I thought, I have to learn how to keep going, no matter how bad it is. Once I start a song, I have to finish it. So I started to focus on that mostly. I wasn't teaching myself scales or exercises. I didn't know any of them. But I just thought, okay, I'm going to do a make-believe song and see if I can play it for 3 minutes without stopping. And then I, you know, listen back and I go, okay, that's pretty good. Sounds like a song. If there were other people playing, you might think it was some sort of garage band, you know, playing a simple song. And that became the way that I taught myself how to play music for people, because that really is the key, isn't it? As musicians, we're supposed to play music for people. So what do people want? They want to hear music start, continue, and then finish. They're not interested in the details that we practice as students. They just want to hear music.
Yeah. Oh, that's a fantastic idea, though, to record yourself and listen back.
Yeah.
So you still have those recordings?
I probably do, and I you know, don't want to listen to them. But in all honesty, I'm sure they're unplayable. I mean, tape falls apart, and the tape that they had given me, I think, was had recordings over and over again of like you know, metaphysical dissertations by Jesuit priests. I mean, my parents listened to all kinds of intellectual stuff, and these were old speeches that were on here. So the tapes, I'm sure, are unplayable at this point.
Oh, such a shame. And of course, I know everyone's talked to you about this, but you were a guitar teacher as well. And you taught some pretty impressive. We had some pretty impressive students, Kirk Hammett and Steve Vai.
Yeah.
You went on to work with Steve. What was that like after obviously teaching him, going to school with him, and then being in a band with him?
It's it's so natural. We've known each other for almost our entire lives.
Yeah. We've
hung out with each other, in my backyard, sitting back to back, just playing for hours. We grew up in the same town, as you said, went to the same high school. We had a lot of the same friends as we got older. When you're really young, the age difference is a really big deal. I met him when he was 12, I was 15, so that was a big deal. But, once you pass 18, age difference doesn't matter so much. So we became, comrades with the same crazy dream that two little kids from Long Island could become rock guitar players for life, Yeah. And so every opportunity that we had to help each other or to do something together, we would jump at it. So when I invited him to do the first G3, of course he wanted to do it. And it took a while to work out the details, but ever since then, we've been on stage a lot. As a matter of fact, the very last time I played before the pandemic, it was with Steve. Steve and I played together twice in the beginning of 2020, and we haven't done that since. So we're dying to get out there.
Will you do another G3 together, do you think?
I'm sure we will. It'll be in 2023 at the earliest, but we're talking about it.
Yeah. Oh, great. That would be brilliant. And Kirk Hammett, I'd just love to know quickly, what was it like the first time you guys bumped into each other after obviously him being your student, and then, Metallica happened, and then
what a great, what a great outcome. I mean, he was such a motivated young student. I mean, he could play pretty well when I first met him.
Had he had lessons before?
Yeah, he was already playing lead guitar in the band Exodus when he started taking lessons. And then during that time, he got the gig with Metallica, and he started taking 2 lessons a week. He was so motivated. He was such a good student. He knew exactly what he wanted, and he was really hungry. So it was great. It was just, and he was actually my very last student. The very last lesson I gave in early January of '88 was to Kirk. And then the next day I was off becoming a solo artist for the first time in my life. So it's been very exciting for the both of us. And we actually did a show together in front of 120,000 people in Quebec City a number of years ago. Metallica was kind enough to let us open up right before them. And that was great. I mean, there's something special when you get to hang out with somebody where you both know where you came from, and you're amazed at where you wound up. And it's a good thing,
Yeah.
So,
exactly. Now I'm going to get in trouble if I don't ask you about some of your equipment that you've got there. So are these the guitars that you played on the record, or what's going on there? Tell me about the red one.
Yeah, most of them here. This one got a lot of play. This is a prototype guitar, but it's pretty much alder body, Sustainiac pickup in the neck position, saturator in the bridge position. Some crazy artwork from my wife on there.
That's great. Do you normally get her to do that for you?
I do a lot. Yes. She did all the Paisley stuff, actually. The same guitar, basically just different wood. This one's got basswood, and it's the Muscle Car Red. These are some new, you can't see those knobs, right? But those are those new knobs.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. A guy named Matt Savers makes them for me. I didn't use that guy. I used this one on about 3 or 4 songs. This is a 7-string prototype. It never went into production, but ever since it was made for me by the custom shop in LA, I've played this. It's a great sound, all mahogany. It just has a really unique tone to it. I generally don't like 7-string guitars because they sound kind of phasey sounding, but this one is different for some reason.
It's going to get more beautiful with age, that one as well. The more worn it gets, the more.
Already, yes. And then I think, this guy here, chrome guitar, of course. Nice. That's on the album quite a bit. Not too many though. Maybe there's a sitar and an electric 12 string. Maybe about, I used to have a piece of paper with everything on it somewhere around here.
Have you played a sitar before?
A real one, yes. Impossible to play.
Really? So you played a sitar on the record. Was that on the track Sahara?
It's there's a little bit of it on there. There's a song called Doors of Perception that's got a bit more of it on there. Okay. But I think there's only about 10 guitars. The sitar is actually a Jerry Jones electric sitar. Right. I played my KSA 20 signature acoustic. A little bit of a Martin acoustic guitar. I only used a SansAmp plugin for all the guitar sounds. So even though I play through those amps every day, getting ready for touring on the album, for some reason, it turned out the SansAmp plugin sounded best. That really surprised me. I mean, I was not prepared for that. I'd done all these tracks with recording and reamping the amps and used expensive modelers, and none of them sounded as good as the old Avid plugin for SansAmp. So there you go. Now, having said that, just to let you know, the gear, once I sent all those tracks down to Eric and Greg for mixing, Greg took those SansAmp tracks and he put them through, $50,000 Fairchild limiters and, Les Paul's very own LA2A. So they did get the most, holy grail analog treatment before they went back into Pro Tools and printed for the mix. So,
do you own your first guitar?
My very first guitar, I own a version of it too, but the actual one I sold to one of Steve Vai's friends when he was also taking lessons from me, so that I could have some money to buy a Telecaster.
Oh, I love it. And has he still got that? Do you know?
I don't think so. No, I think he sold it for something he shouldn't have.
Yeah, exactly. And did you get your Telecaster then in the end?
That Telecaster, I wound up trading for a Les Paul. The Les Paul I traded for a Strat. The Strat I traded for something else. Guitar players, we're just continually buying, selling, trading. It never ends.
Chasing sound. That's what the perfect sound, isn't it? That's what you do. Yeah. I guess every guitar has its place. But I know you play, what is it, Ibanez, isn't it?
Yeah, they're so well tailored to what I do. It's really, I can't be happier. They're so great. Every time we want to tweak them a little bit, we get the team to tweak it just right. Then I've got DiMarzio pickups and all this great luthier work from the guys in Japan. So I'm very happy.
Brilliant. Well, listen, I need to let you go because I know you've got other interviews and stuff to do. So thank you so much for coming on the show. It's really insightful, especially with regards to, you recording yourself playing. I think that could be a real, a great tip for me to try and improve my playing, actually.
Yeah, try that. I'm sure you'll find it very helpful.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. Well, congrats on the record. It sounds brilliant. And we'll see you in Europe next year.
Yes. All right. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.